here we are again at Charles Sturt EdX. It seems to come around very quickly each year, although at one point it would seem to be a long way away. To this year, our theme, Connected and Curious, Teaching for Inclusion and Engagement, is one that touches on many aspects of our work. Good morning to everyone who's here, and I know that the numbers will keep increasing as we go. It's a highlight for me in my role as Subdean Academic Development to be able to host this conference and to showcase so much of the practice that happens across our university. There's some wonderful things happening. I'm going to invite Renee now to open our conference with some opening remarks and an acknowledgement of country, and then I'll give you some housekeeping details before we then invite Phil to start, and hopefully by then Phil will be here. Renee, thank you so much for your time this morning and for being engaged with our conference. We look forward to your opening, and I'll just hand over to you now.
Well, thank you, Denise, for inviting me, and thank you for the introduction. I am really glad to be here because, as you say, it's a really important event on the university's calendar. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands from where we're all joining today and recognise the Wiradjuri, Ngunnawal, Gundungurra and Biripi peoples where Charles Sturt University campuses are located. And today I'm joining you from Albury on Wiradjuri country. And I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I'd like to acknowledge any First Nations people who are joining us on the webinar today. I began my role as Vice-Chancellor at Charles Sturt a little over a year ago, and from the beginning, there were many things that, of course, really impressed me. The calibre of our staff, your commitment, the innovative research, world-class facilities, and, of course, your passion for our community engagement, sustainability, educational excellence, number one, and graduate outcomes, and that's really just to name a few. We've adopted the University Strategy 2030, but of course I do want to emphasise that what we're trying to do is be aligned with our strategic goals in everything we do, not seeing the university strategy as some extra thing we do beside our key of education and research, but being about the way that we take our journey towards excellence in education and research. We are, of course, committed to maintaining our position as Australia's leading regional university, advancing the careers of our students, creating inspiring research, and driving regional outcomes with global impact. And in all of that, providing excellence in everything that we do. And I know that this event, Charles Sturt EdX, is part of your contribution to ensuring excellence in teaching and embedding a culture of excellence and distinction in scholarly achievement. So in order to do that, of course, it's vital that we invest in sharing what is teaching excellence. And that's what this key professional learning event is all about, to see where we are our best, where we can improve, and how we can share knowledge with each other to ensure best practice in both education and student experience, because that's what will continue to support our position as a leading and successful higher education provider. The event also, and I love this theme that you've chosen, challenges us to be curious, to see where we can be the students and learn from each other. This is how we will equip ourselves to provide extraordinary learning experiences for our students, to meaningfully connect with them, to provide relevant, thought-provoking education opportunities that engage them to be lifelong learners. And, you know, at the moment I'm in Albury, I try to get around and visit all of our campuses and speak with staff, and people love this theme about being connected and curious, and they are really passionate about getting us back to engagement as we all recover from the pandemic, engagement with each other, but especially finding what will probably be new and varied ways of engaging with our students. So let me say a little bit about curiosity. So curiosity about ideas can support and improve a creative approach to our work. And curiosity should be fundamental to a student's university experience. I'm sure you all remember what it was like to be a first-year university student, and you feel that your brain is just being expanded out into a whole new world of thinking and perceiving. And that's what we want our students to experience, that they have that curiosity both sparked and sated, that they are then equipped to do the kind of critical thinking that will enable them to keep learning and growing. And critical thinking really requires curiosity, because you have to ask the right questions, you have to be prepared to listen to different perspectives, and you have to be able to respectfully debate a whole range of theories and be open to any one of them, perhaps being partly right, partly wrong, or none of the above. And so I really want to see our classrooms, whether they're on campus or online, become places where that curiosity is really fostered. In order to do that, we really do have to have the connection, which is the other part of your theme about connected and curious, because if people don't feel that they're in a safe space of connection and empathy, then they will be less willing to hear the perspectives of others and be curious about different ways of expressing themselves. And similarly, amongst our colleagues, we need to provide that same connection and empathy so that we all feel supported in exploring how to become better at what we do. And one of my themes that I'm sure you'll often hear me talk about is that curiosity should also mean a willingness to do things differently, to look outside the box and to find new ways and innovative ways to do our teaching, to push boundaries as educators, to inspire students and to try new concepts. And that, of course, will include how we teach, what we teach, and how we organise ourselves in our schools and divisions. So I hope you will, over the next few days, not only at CS EdX, but every day, practice curiosity and be inquisitive about new ways of doing things, because that's what will make us all more enthusiastic for work and for life, because we won't feel like we're just treading along the same old path, but in fact thinking afresh about the way we do things, not assuming that the way we've always done it is any guarantee of excellence, because it might well be something new that is what takes us to where we need to be. And finally, of course, I wanted to say something about diversity. We welcome and embrace diversity here at Charles Sturt University, and we believe that the meeting of people from different backgrounds, cultures, perspectives and experiences is not only what creates a supportive atmosphere, but an atmosphere in which you can push boundaries, pursue lifelong learning and achieve excellence in teaching. We support big ideas, and we encourage our staff and our students to be bold and curious. I never forget that our regional footprint means that we are educating some of the largest numbers of students in Australian universities from relatively less privileged backgrounds, and yet our graduate satisfaction and our graduate outcomes are among the highest in the country. So clearly we are doing something really well to take our students from backgrounds that haven't necessarily supported excellence in education all the way through to graduation and successful post-graduation life. And so I hope that here at Charles Sturt EdX, you'll explore some of what the recipes are that are achieving that success and how we can build on those moving forward. I hope that you will be not only fostering collaboration amongst yourselves, but also focusing on how do we get a student-centred culture in everything that we do. You'll be exploring multiple streams across topics include meeting student needs, teaching paradigms, building stronger learning communities, how to create optimal learning experiences, and exploring academic identity. You might be experiencing a presentation, a symposium, an interactive discussion, a podcast, a quick talk, or even a Charles Sturt story. And this really broad range of mediums, I'm sure, is going to make it a really exciting conference program over the next few days. I did want to say a few thanks to people who pulled this together. The calibre of contributions that's on the program is really extraordinary, and I know I'll hear the outcomes from these proceedings, not just immediately afterwards, but in the work that comes forward over the coming year. I do want to thank the CS EdX team for what I'm sure has been an enormous amount of work, but especially has been an example of great dedication and passion to doing something important. So thank you for your commitment to this really valuable initiative that I know all your colleagues will really benefit from. And of course, thank you to everyone who's submitting a contribution into the CS EdX, because it's all of you who are making this the success that it's going to be. It's your preparatory work and your thought-provoking submissions that are going to make this event such a success. So I hope you find the following days to be valuable and meaningful, that you'll be invigorated by the ideas and the concepts that you hear, and that you'll find more ways to guarantee excellence in teaching and education and ensure that our students are engaged and that they thrive. And even though we're online, I hope that you will still find it an opportunity to feel more connected to your colleagues and to students, and to find ways that you can support and energise each other. After 3 days of collective thinking and celebrating, I'm sure that you'll feel really excited by all that we're going to achieve in 2023 for our students and for each other. So congratulations on organising a really stimulating program, and I hope that you all have a very successful CS EdX 2022.
Renee, thank you so much. That was a wonderful opening, and I know that now we will go ahead feeling inspired, because you've helped us see the inspiration that we all are to each other. Thank you for your time this morning and for getting us going.
Thanks, Denise. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
I have a few housekeeping details just to make sure that everyone is aware of how to access sessions and what's happening. As Renee mentioned, we've got 3 days of activity, including symposiums, including papers and quick talks and discussion opportunities. And there are also 6 professional development sessions that are on the program this week that focus on particular topics and areas that we might be looking at. It's easy to access the links to each session if you go into the CS EdX domain hub, which is available online through either the DLT site or, Sarah, we might put the link directly into the chat so that people can see that and use that. The big sessions, such as the keynotes, will be running as webinars so that you can see the speakers and see them up front. But across all of the other sessions, they will be interactive Zoom rooms. And we encourage you to engage in questions, in conversation, in bringing life to the presentations. We have over 40 presentations from academics and divisional staff in the program this year, and each of those represents the work that someone is doing to engage and motivate our students, to inspire our students to take up their learning and be curious about where it's going to take them. It's exciting to see so many different opportunities where people are actually providing new and exciting learning for their students. Each session will have a facilitator to guide the session, and they will help you make sure that you're in the right Zoom room that you wanted to be in, but also they will manage the time, because we do have a limit on our time. We want everybody in a shared session to be able to have the same amount of time to present their ideas. As Renee has suggested, I do hope as well that you will be inspired, that you'll be energized by the events and what's happening, and that we will be able to connect across our different locations and places to be curious about what else is happening here at Charles Sturt. I do hope that you enjoy it and that you also actually get some new ideas and things to do. I can see that Phil is here, but Phil, you must be in the attendees. Just let me check that.
Yep, I'm on. Very good. I think someone might need to promote me to being a panelist at some stage.
Oh, okay, that may well be me. Promote to panelists. There you go. Excellent.
Thank you. I think
Okay.
one last thing, someone might need to tell me that the host might need to let me start my video.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. So there you go. I've clicked that so you can share your screen.
Oh, sorry. One last thing. When I click to start video, it says unable to start video. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh. That's where we may need to call on our expert technology person, Mark, to see what's happened there. Advanced sharing options.
Bear with me, Phil. I'll just have a bit of a squeeze in the background there. It well set up.
No worries.
I'm going to disappear for a minute. Give me a sec.
Okay. While we are investigating that, I'd like to introduce Phil as our keynote. We have a range of people here from across the university, and I'm delighted to introduce Professor Phil Dawson as our opening keynote. After listening to Phil present at Hertzer in July this year, it did seem a natural fit to invite him to come to CS EdX. Assessment, academic integrity, a curiosity about how we together as a community address the core issues that plague us all in higher education, and an intention to make connections across the sector were all elements of everything I've read and heard from Phil. Phil comes to us from the Cradle Group, engaging in research around assessment and digital learning at Deakin University. Phil, having you with us is gold, is really gold. Thank you. And without further ado, as long as you can run your video, I invite you to the microphone.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise. Look, at this stage, I can't click start video, but I think I can still share screen. So you could all just imagine that I am dashingly good looking, have an amazing camera set up here, and all of that sort of thing. Okay. I think we can do that. All right. I am just going to share a particular bit of my screen. Oh, no, actually, I won't share this yet. I will share a different thing. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to share this. All right. So I'm going to talk about cheating. Now, cheating is big business, big deal, all that. It's big in the sort of popular rhetoric. I don't know if people saw this story over the weekend, a couple of weeks ago. This was the front page story of your local New South Wales Fairfax paper. University students caught paying others to do their work at record levels. This story was an interesting one. It was presented initially as there's huge spikes in rates of cheating. And then a few of us in the academic integrity field spoke with the journalists involved and said, oh, actually, this is a spike in detection rates. It's a lot harder to say whether cheating has risen or not. So hard to say which one it is. But regardless of which way you look at it, big universities in New South Wales have been detecting cheating at a greater rate. A quote I have in this story is around the fact that two of the universities have huge rates of cheating in this story, and some of them have incredibly small rates of cheating. And I'm not sure that's actually to do with the rates of cheating. I think that's to do with detection. So over the pandemic, we've seen some big spikes in cheating being reported and some sort of almost ignorance of it. Now, it's easy to think of cheating as something that sort of exists at universities, but I don't know if people saw this one. Oh, The Guardian, you always want me to try to support you, give you money, but I am not going to do that right now. People may have seen this one. Ernst & Young pays $100 million to settle US charges of cheating on ethics exams. Isn't this one hilarious? Cheating on ethics exams. And these are the very types of businesses that universities pay to come in and tell us if we are doing a good job or not. Ernst & Young has settled this, and, you know, I think some people were able to maintain their CPA licenses and some people weren't. But this just shows that cheating's a big deal. It's big in education, but it's also big well outside of education. Now, whenever we talk about cheating, it's often brought up that cheating is caused by big macro social factors. Neoliberalism is a common one that's brought up, you know, that it's actually some of these big social issues that cause cheating. Now, I'm sympathetic to those sorts of ideas. The idea that our current educational sector, the way that it's structured in ways that I have very little control over, might be what influences cheating. That the fact that people need these high stakes credentials that we award might drive some of the cheating. That the economic circumstances that students find themselves within might drive cheating. You know, it's cheaper to work and pay someone else to do your work for you in terms of dollars and hours. That's a cheaper, better deal than doing the work yourself. So I am on board with the idea that, you know, cheating's caused by big macro social factors, but those aren't things that I have very much control over. And I suspect they're things that you might not have very much control over either. So we're not going to focus in this area when we talk about cheating, because we've got to do something about it. And the got to do something about it comes from here. So the legislation that we have to operate under says that we have to do something about academic and research integrity. We have to. This isn't optional. This is stuff that we just have to do. You'll see here that we've got sort of a responsibility both to take preventative action and also to do some detection, to get in there and check that what we do actually works, that we don't have rampant cheating and that sort of stuff. Now, this is often, this 5.2 is the justification for caring about cheating, for doing something about it, that's often given. But, oh my gosh, I got camera. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I've been clicking this button every now and then, trying to see, is it working? Is it working? Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm a real human being. I'm not some sort of AI voice that's been generated. So lovely to be seen by you all. You're already seeing me. No, I was already seeing you, or I wasn't. Continue, Phil. Enough blather. Okay. So anyway, this is where we often place the responsibility that we have to care about cheating. And it certainly is here, but I'd argue that it's also here. Learning outcomes and assessment. This is actually why I care a lot about cheating, because this 1.4 says, as a university, if you're going to award a qualification, the people had better be able to do the things that you say they can do. Those learning outcomes you say the qualification assesses had better be assessed, and you'd better be sure those people can do those things. To me, cheating is a problem because it gets in the way of us making that assessment of what students can do. It's a validity problem. So we have this responsibility to only give people degrees if they've met the outcomes, and if people cheat, we can't be sure of that. This is why I care about it. I actually am not so clear cut on some of the morality aspects of cheating. You know, if you say, cheating's wrong because it gives some students an unfair advantage, I'd say, well, Do we penalise people for all the other things that give them an unfair advantage? You know, coming from a well-off family with parents who have degrees and all of that. I come from a family where my parents had degrees and had a degree, and it certainly helped me. But I also watched them as first in family people make 5 attempts to get a university degree, and they ended up getting 1 between them from Charles Sturt Uni, actually. And, you know, there were other people with a greater advantage than them there. So it's not like we penalise all aspects of advantage or prop up all aspects of disadvantage. And the various other moral arguments for the wrongness of cheating are dubious as well. To me, let's sideline that morality stuff. And let's just say we have to be sure when we give a degree to someone that they can do certain things, or else it creates real problems for public safety. Okay. And we don't do a good job of the detection side of things. This is something from the UK where journalists went out to universities and said, tell us the rates of cheating that you detect. And then they matched it up to the prevalence of cheating in the literature. And they did this via Freedom of Information requests, which I think is a really clever one, and I think will be coming to your university at some stage. You'll get journos saying, give us your cheating prevalence rates. And this graph is interesting. So this big bar here is the proportion of students in UK universities who engage in contract cheating. Now, this is extrapolation from research on prevalence of cheating. It's from a meta-analysis of all the articles on cheating, and those articles together come to about a 15.7% prevalence. So this is the likely amount of cases of contract cheating. So this is people outsourcing their work. And this is the amount of cases that universities report. And you can see there's a big gap there between the likely prevalence and the cases that are detected. So we do have a problem with detection there. And I wouldn't say Australian universities are orders of magnitude better, though I would say we are better than this. You might be able to see the red line if it were us. If we want to talk about prevalence as well, and if anyone wants to follow that up, because I gave that 15.7% figure, some of the studies in that meta-analysis aren't great, but I'd really point you to this paper on self-report of rates of contract cheating by Guy Curtis and colleagues, where they did a bit more of a sophisticated self-report study design. They tried this Bayesian truth serum methodology, which if you're a stats nerd, you'll love. And look, they find about 7.9% of students from Australian universities admitted to buying and submitting assignments from commercial contract cheating sites. And then, you know, there's students outsourcing via pre-written work. So these contract cheating sites, you can either get bespoke new stuff or pre-written stuff. However you cut it, my hunch is it's probably about 10% of students are engaging in this at some stage in their degrees. Now, the sorts of sites that they're going to really vary, but one of the really big players is Chegg. Now, to be really clear, I want to say that Chegg is a site students use to engage in cheating sometimes. I don't want to say Chegg is a contract cheating site because I've been told that's a dangerous thing to say. But a really interesting one is to track Chegg's share price. Now, I did some sums, and at this point here, Chegg was worth about 12 billion US dollars. That's 12 billion with a B. By comparison, Turnitin, when they recently sold for 1.7 billion with a B US dollars. So it shows you where the end of the market is. If you're worried about big commercial players in the anti-cheating space and all of the horrors that they do, you should also be similarly concerned about big commercial players in the cheating space. A study by Lancaster and Cotterlin also found that over this same period where Chegg's share price was rapidly increasing, requests for cheating services in STEM disciplines roughly doubled. So I'm willing to buy the argument that commercial contract cheating did grow during the pandemic. And it's really worth doing a Google search like this where you go to chegg.com on Google Images. So you search that site and you go for .edu.au, and you'll just get pages and pages and pages of, you know, solved stuff. Students in the middle of exams uploading their requests for items. Just tons of this. And if you think, oh yeah, but we've got some remote proctoring solution and that solves it. If we search something like that, we'll see one of the remote proctoring companies' little things that flashes up only for a few moments at an exam when you have your mouse in a particular portion of the screen. This Proctorio is sharing your screen comes up, and you'll see, you know, photos of students who have got their phone out, taken the photo during the remote proctored exam and uploaded that. Look, one thing, I've talked contract cheating and remote proctoring, but one thing I haven't talked about is AI tools, and I might just quickly cover those a bit. I don't know if people have seen these tools that can produce work for students. Let's make a blog post. I'd love people in the chat to just give me the topic for a blog post that you might have as a university assignment. So just jump on that chat.
Phil, we're probably using the Q&A section rather than
Oh,
the
okay.
chat
Oh, yeah,
section
I can
for
see the chat's
input.
been
Yeah.
disabled for participants. Okay. Could someone just chuck up on the Q&A, just the topic, networking? Oh, could I get something? Oh, busted nutrition myth, need to eat for 2 in pregnancy. That's nice. I'm going to go with that. And a tone. So a tone might be, oh, looks like I've got some of my previous ones there. Semi-formal, severe, witty, lay people. Okay. All right. So what we're going to get now is we're going to get an outline for a blog post. So here's our outline. Here's our paragraphs that we get. We could regenerate that and get new ones. Oh, no results found. This is the first time it's happened to me. We're going to have to run with these. Now, the first paragraph, its topic is myth busted. Let's see what we get from this. Oh my gosh. This is the worst that's ever done for me. You have come up with, this is the first time I've had a topic that it's totally failed on. This is wonderful. Now, I'm not saying you've come up with some sort of perfect solution, but this paragraph that we have here is completely inappropriate for what we've asked for. I'm going to go and I'm going to pick one of the others that's on here. Going to pick, what's the impact of globalization on education and training in your field? But that's fascinating. You've really come up with something totally wrong. All right. Going to go back. Going to go, let's do another blog. Congratulations on coming up with something that really didn't work. Let's try this. All right. Here we've got something on globalization in education. Going to get some paragraphs. All right, so this is newly written text. I show this to you to say that AI writing tools are out there, students are using them, and we've got just brand new stuff that's being written. You could use these tools. Professionals use these tools. We can get in there, we could edit what the paragraph's about, we could add in some keywords. We might add in, I don't know, academic integrity. Let's add that in, generate a new paragraph. Now, you can see here, it initially was going to write a paragraph on sort of more general stuff, but here we've got some conversation about academic integrity there. I don't know how good this is. I think it's taken academic integrity in more of a like academic freedom type direction. Anyway, I raise these things to say that these tools are out there. These tools are used by people. They're used by professionals. I'm not saying these are cheating tools, but we should be aware of them. And I think in the coming months to a year, we're going to see a lot of use of these sorts of things. And look, just briefly, can someone chuck on the Q&A a picture that they would like to see created? So here we've got a 3D render of a cute tropical fish in an aquarium. Here we've got an armchair in the shape of an avocado. Here we've got an oil painting by Matisse of a humanoid robot playing chess. What would you like to see a brand new picture created of? What would we like to see? Elon Musk got a pyramid. I love that. And can someone else put a style in? So some sort of, oh, actually it won't do Elon Musk because it doesn't do people. So I'm going to do a tree with a computer in it. So it doesn't do specific people. And I'll get banned if I make too many requests to have a specific person. All right, we've got a style. All right, so whatever it produces is going to be a brand new thing that's not been seen before. I actually don't know pointillist style, so I'm going to have to trust other people on whether or not this is good pointillist style. I also am going to take this one and let's go photorealistic. Okay, so these are brand new things, and I'm presenting these to show that AI is producing just new stuff for people. So pretty scary stuff, actually, I've got to say. I'm kind of terrified by that. Let's get out of these AI tools. All right. If you're interested in all of this stuff that I'm talking about, I'm going to talk about it some more now and how we can address it, but I'm going to give a brief plug to my book, which is in your library, Defending Assessment Security in a Digital World. So if you want to follow up on any of the stuff I talk about, because I'm about to leave this kind of part of the presentation, just have a look at the book. The ebook's good. You can download PDFs of chapters. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the problems of cheating, but I haven't talked much about what we can do about them. And that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the time. When we talk about problems of cheating, it's hard to kind of rank them. It's hard to say, well, what approaches are better than others? And that's what people often come to me and say, Phil, there's a lot of things we could do, but which ones should we do? Which ones are better than others? And to that, I have tried to take this approach of a tier list. Now, a tier list is a way of ranking things or comparing things. This is one of them. This is a tier list about insects. This is a tier list of some particular video game, League of Legends, and some sort of items that are in that game. This is a tier list. Oh, what have we got? It seems like we've really got a lot of video game tier lists from YouTube, probably based on my own search history. Here we've got YouTubers, individuals. The way that these things work is people try and come up with all the possible things in a space and then list them, rank them. And I'm going to show you on a different share now some different approaches to addressing cheating. All right, you don't want that, you want this. Now, bear with me while I just resize this window. Great. And someone's going to yell and scream at me if they can't see a black background with SABCDF on the left side. Great. All right. So what I'd really love from you now is we've got a tier list. We're going to create it. We're going to populate it. But I'd love to do it in the order of the things that you really want. So in that Q&A, please jump on and mention one of those things at the bottom, and I'll tell you where it goes on the list. All right, so recycling is one of the things. All right, reusing tasks is what this one is. Now we've got here S, A, B, C, D, F. And just, I'm going to do a brief aside. Could one of the organisers please just jump onto the chat or Q&A or whatever and let me know how much time I've got left or when I've got to finish, because the timings have run a little different to expected for me today. So just, if you can let me know that, it'll let me know my pacing. All right. Reusing tasks. Absolutely don't do it. You saw on that screen share before of Chegg about how many tasks are out there and have just been reused. Reusing tasks just opens up the opportunity for someone to search one of those sites where they've already been addressed and copy paste from them. Now, some tasks reuse better than others. If you're thinking of reusing a multiple choice quiz, once it's out there, it's burned now. We are now in an environment where multiple choice is just gone once you've used it once. And this is really sad because good multiple choice is so hard to write. So really, that's why it goes on the F. I don't think anyone really uses it intentionally as an anti-cheating approach, but it's mentioned there because it's just a real don't. Okay, what do we do? Oh gosh, we've actually got a lot of things. Someone says cheese. Now cheese makes it all the way to the top. So what we could call Swiss cheese approaches came to be pretty important during the pandemic when we realized that masks were an imperfect intervention at addressing COVID-19 and vaccines were an imperfect intervention and social distancing was imperfect. And we had all of these imperfect ways of addressing this horrible problem. But together, several of these layers did, a better job than if we'd have just used one of them. So Swiss cheese approaches go back to a researcher called Reason, and they proposed that, we want to be searching for layers of intervention that together might do a good enough job. So when we're talking about ways to address cheating, it's easy to get stuck in this mindset of, gee, we've got to find the best anti-cheating approach, the one that's impossible to defeat. The problem is that doesn't exist. So instead, we have to look for things that help us, that don't hurt us too much, that when we layer them together, help us to do a pretty good job. And that is why Swiss cheese goes all the way to the top. Sorry, I'm just going to grab something. Sorry, I thought I had my cheat sheet here. I've got my cheat sheet here. Because to you, this is supposed to appear like I'm magically creating all of these and don't have a predetermined order. But actually, to me, I may have a predetermined order for these. Okay, so that's the cheese. If you want to see some people talk about this and a lot of cheese-related jokes, there's a hashtag Believe in the Cheese that a few academic integrity researchers have been using on Twitter. Okay, we've got the live discussion or the Viva. Now, good on you for seeing that was what it was, because this is Vivas. Now, Vivas go on this A tier, which is below this inexplicably named S tier. The S tier, there is no clear justification for why it's S, but it's a tradition when you do a tier list that you have this tier that's got an S on it. The S might be superior, but the etymology of it is likely in the Japanese grading system. They have this S grading part of it. Anyway, that's by the by. Vivas. this idea that we might talk with students about their work as a way of ascertaining if they've actually produced the work themselves. There's emerging work on it. There's a great project out of Griffith Uni on Vivas, specifically as a way to use them to address academic integrity concerns. But I mean, really, the process of talking with people to understand if they've met the outcomes goes back a very long way. Socrates, allegedly, it wasn't written down by him, said that with this advent of writing, people are going to appear as if they know things, but they really don't. They just read it or they wrote it down. And really, to get to the heart of it, you've got to have a conversation with them. You've got to have that. I can say that when I taught first year computer science, this was just standard practice, that we would mark their assessments in the labs. We would sit down with them and their work, and we'd ask them questions about their work as we went through the process of marking it. And we did that partly for dialogic feedback, because it's really important to engage in that sort of dialogue with people about their work. But we also did it for, try to understand if this person really did the work. Now, you might be thinking, Phil, Vivas sound great, but we really can't afford that, not at the scale that we operate within. And to that, I'd say, we can't do Vivas in every task. Within the resourcing envelope that Australian universities get, that's impossible. But if we take that Swiss cheese idea and think layers that we might use at different points of time, maybe it becomes feasible at some points of a degree to do that. Maybe at the points where we really, really care about it. Okay, we had the sorry there. Now the sorry, which I'm going to have to move some things out of the way to get to. The sorry, it goes all the way up here on the top tier. So this idea that we might give students a way to come forward when they have done something wrong and say, hey, I want to make this right. It's a great idea for a bunch of reasons. Firstly, it allows students a way to perhaps participate in more of a restorative justice approach. And your policy may or may not enable this. I think it would be really interesting to go to your policy and see, is there a way that students can come forward if they have done something and maybe have a different process that's less sort of crime and punishment. It's something that I'd point to the University of New South Wales's Courageous Conversations approach if you want a model of how this is done elsewhere. It's cheap because you don't have to invest in detection for those people who come forward to you and tell you they've done something wrong. But it also can provide a way for people who are experiencing things like blackmail to have some sort of way out of it. Because we do know that blackmail happens with cheating, and it's a horrible thing. So work by John York and colleagues out of Curtin Uni found that students were being blackmailed when they'd done contract cheating. So they were having the contract cheating sites come to them and demand more money. So you might have passed your assignment, but the contract cheating site comes to you and asks for more money. And maybe it might even come to you and ask for more money after you've graduated. So having processes for students to say, I'm in trouble, I've done the wrong thing, help me out. Those go up there on the S tier. We've got in-person invigilated written exams. Okay. And so far, people have really said what the things are, like my ambiguous diagrams on the bottom haven't fooled you. Okay. These go up here on B. I mean, they're okay. They do a thing. People do cheat in them and have cheated them for a long time, for at least 1,500 years. But you go back to the Chinese civil service entry exams, and there's a great sort of set of pictures of different approaches to cheating that people use. And it's pretty similar to the WikiHow article on how to cheat in exams, which is a really good article to read. Anyway, face-to-face exams, work by the Bretag Harper crew found that, there was still a lot of what they called third-party cheating going on in exams. And the rate of that students reported was higher than the rate of third-party cheating in assignments. And what was interesting was the rate of detection by staff was lower in exams than it was in assignments. So this kind of suggested that maybe exams aren't as good as they're cracked up to be. They're not perfect. They're not terrible. they shouldn't be our only approach. They're a layer of Swiss cheese we might want to deploy sometimes. All right, we've got the hammer. The hammer is legislation. Now, legislation is going to go down there in the C tier. Australia has legislation that makes it a crime to offer to do all or part of someone else's assignment in a commercial capacity, or to advertise those sort of services. And it's punishable by up to 2 years imprisonment, which is the same as like a high range aggravated assault in Victoria. I don't know about New South Wales. There's just not evidence this sort of legislation works. It goes back to the 1970s in some jurisdictions, and there's not been evidence that it actually works. I've co-authored a couple of papers with evidence that it probably doesn't work. That students in jurisdictions that don't outlaw this cheating, but they thought that cheating was outlawed, they still cheated, and the rate of cheating wasn't different. That offers to provide cheating services on social media largely came from jurisdictions where it was illegal to do so. Those sorts of things make me question whether legislation prohibiting cheating is that effective. It might have a symbolic value. I'll give it that. All right. Integrity. Okay, so I think integrity is this one. So this is your academic integrity modules. They're going to go here on the C tier as well. Academic integrity modules are very effective at allowing you to tell students that you told them that cheating was wrong, and they're very effective at telling TEXA that you have an academic integrity module. They're less effective at reducing rates of cheating. There's just not the evidence out there. The sort of approaches that Australian unis tend to do, which is give you a bunch of multiple choice questions after we've given you a sort of faceless set of text that you can look at. It's just not what we would use in other areas if we were trying to do behavior change, because that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to do education, but we're also trying to do behavior change. Imagine something that was trying to help you to lose weight that took the approach of here's some text and here's some multiple choice questions. Now that's supposed to help you for the next 5 years. It's not effective behavior change. And the research just isn't out there to support this as a highly effective approach that really reduces the prevalence of cheating. So it ends up on that C tier. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I think we should still do it. If we take the Swiss cheese approach, sure, great. But we shouldn't say we have an academic integrity module, problem solved. It's just not enough. Webcam. So the webcam is remote proctoring. Now it ends up on this B tier as well. I'm quoted in the paper on the weekend as saying that face-to-face exams are probably more secure than remote proctoring. And yeah, I do believe that, but not enough that they would wind up on different tiers. Remote proctoring also provides a great deal of convenience that we may think is worth the potential trade-offs for security. The literature's pretty mixed on remote proctoring as a way of reducing cheating. There's at least a dozen studies that take the form of we gave students an exam and it was either proctored or unproctored. Maybe they were randomized between them, and the students in the proctored group did worse than the students in the unproctored online exam. And from there, the inference is made that it was probably due to reduced rates of cheating in the proctored exam. Sometimes they explore other potential things like trait test anxiety might be a way of explaining it. But as a whole, I'm willing to believe that from the literature that remote proctoring probably deters cheating. There aren't, however, studies that show that remote proctoring detects cheating. So that's the difference there. Deterring, I didn't cheat because I was worried I'd get caught. Detection, we were able to find those people who cheated. There are a couple of studies that show that for these particular studies, most or all of the times that the researchers tried to cheat, they were able to get away with it in a remote proctored exam. So that shows that maybe the detection side isn't that effective. The deterrent side, yeah. So it does reduce rates of cheating is the impression I get. I would love to do a study where I try to cheat in remote proctored exams and really get to the bottom of it. And I have approached several remote proctoring vendors and asked them, and I've signed NDAs and had meetings with CEOs and all that sort of stuff. And none of them will let me do such a study. And I've had legal advice that I'm not allowed to do that sort of study without approval from the companies. So to some extent, the jury's out on how effective they are at detecting cheating. Okay. Why is there no E on the list? Good question. Too many categories, no need for an E, but thank you. All right. I'm just checking. Okay, we've got, someone's mentioned group work, which is this, I'm thinking they're thinking this one down here, which is actually central teams. So this is the idea that we might develop teams of people to deal with cheating, misconduct, academic integrity, rather than leaving it all to the domain of the individual academic. So a lot of the cause of kind of low detection or dealing with cases of cheating at universities seems to be the belief that it's too hard to prove or that it's too much work. And there's very much a recognition now that there's an expertise in handling cases of cheating and misconduct. Roles of academic integrity or academic misconduct investigator, that sort of role seems to be more and more rising up as its own distinct profession in higher education. TEXA is supporting a training course in that area at the moment. That work's being led by Kath Ellis. And the consensus around the sector seems to be that actually centralizing those people, or at least having them in some sort of unit in different places, is a way to build that capacity. It's a job. Another hashtag around this to follow is make it someone's job, because that seems to be a key factor in actually addressing cheating in higher ed. If we leave it to the individual academics, it just doesn't get dealt with appropriately, because not everyone's got the skill set and not everyone's got the time. Okay, I am now going to call on you to tell me another one of these that you'd like me to put up there. So jump onto that Q&A and let me know another one that you want to see. All right, we've got open book. So open book is right here. Now, open book gets up here on the B. This might sound kind of paradoxical to some people. You know, open book's just inviting them to cheat, isn't it? But actually, when we set an exam as open book, you can no longer cheat in it by bringing in your notes. When we say you could bring in the notes, you can't cheat that way anymore. Yeah, it does mean we have to assess differently. We can't take the old closed book exam and make it open book. That's a broken idea. But the fewer restrictions that we set on students, the fewer restrictions we need to enforce. If you say a test is closed book and you can't enforce it to be closed book, that's a huge problem. You are making it so unfair to those people who are choosing to play by your rules. And to be honest, can we enforce closed book anymore, especially in an online context? I really don't believe that we can actually set closed book tasks online anymore. So we might need to look at the tasks that we set and say, can we actually do this? When you make it open book, you make it harder to cheat in because you remove one of those ways of cheating. The love heart. Okay. The love heart is tasks that students want to do. Now, this may be a revelation or it might be the most boring and obvious thing you've ever heard, but the idea that we might want to set tasks, assessment tasks for students that they themselves want to do is a wonderful idea. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can come at this in terms of evidence. My preferred one is via a theory called self-determination theory. Self-determination theory is a theory of motivation. it's this idea that people have more intrinsic motivation when certain needs are met. And these needs are a sense of relatedness, connection with other people, a sense of competence, I'm capable, I'm able to do this thing, and a sense of autonomy. Now, the sense of autonomy is something that really links into this task students want to do piece, that if we're getting students to do things they really don't want to do, they're not going to have that intrinsic motivation to do them. If you'd like a write-up of that, I wrote a chapter recently with Wendy Sutherland Smith in a new book on contract cheating, where we unpack that sort of self-determination theory angle. And there's a lot of empirical work applying self-determination theory, finding that it really does reduce rates of cheating. An alternative angle on this is work by Tracy Brettag and colleagues, where they went and asked students, what types of tasks would you be more or less likely to contract cheat on? And the 10,000 students that they asked gave a list of different types of tasks. And, things like reflection was at the top of the I'd be less likely to contract cheat it. Asking students, what tasks do you want to do? What tasks would you be more or less likely to contract cheat? Seems to be an effective approach. Okay, document properties. Oh, that is over here. Okay, document properties goes up here. Now, there's many different ways we can do document properties. We can just go into a Word doc and say, who's the author on this? And if the author's not the student, that might be an initial thing that might drive a hunch of, maybe I should have a little more of a look into this. And that's something anyone can do, all the way through to some fairly technical things that more expert investigators can do, where they look at what's called RCID values that track the individual edit sessions on a document. So you can see if, all the person with the student's identifier did was go in and change the name of the institution and the name of the person who did it and add their student number onto it. That's pretty suspicious. So there's a range of different things between those in terms of expertise that's required. People who investigate in this space tell me that document properties and various other sort of analytics seem to be pretty effective in terms of demonstrating that someone hasn't done work themselves. Self-reflection, very good. I'm happy some of my pictures actually show what they're meant to be. Okay, so this is reflective practice. Now, reflective practice ends up down here on C. And you might say, but Phil, you just said in tasks students want to do that was at the top of the list of tasks students wanted to do. Or would say they'd be least likely to contract cheat on. And yeah, they might be less likely to contract cheat on them, but gee, they cheat on them. And by cheat, I mean, don't tell the truth. Reflective practice is a really problematic type of assessment to use because people embellish and lie, and they tell us what we want to hear. From an assessment perspective, it's also dubious because we really teach people a genre and we reward them for the genre that they've produced rather than the actual reflection. I'm not anti-reflective practice. It's core to many professions. It's a really important thing, but assessed reflective practice becomes really challenging. Now, if you want some good papers to look up on that, there's a great one called They Liked It If You Said That You Cried. And that's the thing. Another one's called Faking It or Hating It. And yeah, that's what people do. All right. Reflection. Someone said, sorry, I'm having struggles. Group project, reflective. Someone said, can you enable our access to Q&A and general conversation? Okay. People have not mentioned another one, so keep on mentioning things. I'm just going to grab another one from down here. I'm going to grab site blocking. So site blocking goes down here on the D tier. Site blocking is where we say you can't access these contract cheating sites. And we currently have that in Australia. I don't know if you've experienced trying to go to one of these cheating sites and you are blocked by your ISP. Your ISP is meant to block your access to about 200 of these sites, which TEXA has sought an injunction against. Now, yeah, it stops you, but you just go on your VPN and go around it. It's not some sort of super effective thing. It's not bad, it's not harmful, but it's not actually that effective. I have raised an issue with TEXA, and they've said they're discussing it with ARNet about how site blocking could actually get in the way of us academics investigating these sites. Because if you are suspicious that a student has used a particular contract cheating site and it's on that block list, you can't get to it. And you probably can't install a VPN on your university machine that lets you get to those sites. So site blocking, kind of mixed. The bar chart someone's asked for. Okay, learning outcomes is the bar chart, and learning outcomes gets on this B tier, right there next to open book. So learning outcomes is this idea that we might want to think really carefully about the outcomes we assess and actually ask ourselves, can we assess these in a way that is in some way resistant to cheating? Because I really am not sure these days how well we can assess lower level learning outcomes in a way that's robust to cheating. Now, what this means is if I'm asking you, can you memorize what's in the book? Like some real low level in a solo taxonomy, like multi-structural or unistructural type of knowledge. If I'm assessing, can you memorize those things and then tell them back to me in a test? I kind of can't do that in a secure way these days. Yeah, you might say a face-to-face exam, and that's probably one of your best approaches, but the sneaking notes in, the exam cheating calculator, the water bottle label, all these other things really call into question, can we assess those lower level outcomes that well these days? So I'm not saying you've got to ditch them everywhere. If you teach first year anatomy and physiology, I'm not saying you've got to ditch the 1,000 terms students have to remember, because I don't want my doctor to do the knee bones connected to the leg bones sort of rhyme every time I'm having a chat with them. I do respect the need for automaticity and that deep knowledge of those lower level outcomes. But we really do need to question if we can assess them securely. So that's why learning outcomes is there on that B tier. Okay, I am going to choose the next one, which is going to be this one, which is staff training. Now, staff training goes up there on the A tier. Why does it get A? Well, there's just reasonable evidence that this stuff is trainable. So an example is we did a study in our centre where we bought heaps of contract cheating assignments. I think we've bought more than anyone in the world. And we asked markers to mark them. And we said, tell us which ones are contract cheating and which ones aren't. They came back to us, and about 60% of the time when they were looking at contract cheating, they were able to say, yeah, this is contract cheating, which was great. We then took them through a training course, and we were able to significantly increase that to about 80%. Now, that's a significant increase. It really halved the amount of it that they were not seeing. And look, there's other work on staff training. This is in recognition that this is a real expert skill set. This is stuff that people need to have, be they a frontline marker of work or be they someone that works in an academic integrity investigation unit. Okay. Next one, unsupervised multiple choice quizzes. You should know by now where this goes, which is down here at the bottom. We just can't do this for things that matter. If you're doing a summative assessment task that really counts, unsupervised multiple choice communicates to students that you just don't care, because we know that students will collaborate on these. We know that they will Google these. If it's a high stakes summative task, you should never do this. Now, I'm not saying never use unsupervised multiple choice quizzes. They're a fantastic learning and teaching tool. They're a great way to get that formative understanding of a group of students and where they're at, and then tailor things to what they need. So absolutely use them, but just don't use them where it really counts. And I say this as someone who has never ever Googled the answer to mandatory compliance quizzes, and I expect nobody else here has ever done that for those mandatory quizzes that HR makes you do about, I don't know, spending on your credit card or corporate ethics or whatever else. Okay, up next, we are going to go better exam design. Now, better exam design goes up here. There's a bunch of ways that you can just muck up when you're doing an exam. You could be reusing the questions. You could have an overwhelming set of single right answer type of questions, which we know are really easy to sort of get out there and really hard to show if any integrity issues have happened. But there's also some good stuff people do in better exam design around, you know, having a large set of questions, around having different copies of the paper, all that sort of stuff. This only applies to you if you actually use exams, but there is a literature out there on how to do better exams. Now, down here, we've got bands. Bands are going to go in this F because we really don't get anywhere by stopping people from using certain things. So there's there was this sort of opinion during the early pandemic that students using essay mills, we have to ban essays because then they can't use essay mills. It just doesn't solve the problem. There's other ways you can contract cheat. And if you want an article by me in defense of multiple choice questions, there's an article I wrote for The Conversation some years back, which is why assessors need access to multiple choices, because it's justifiable to use multiple choice. People often think that assessment for learning people like me hate multiple choice and want it banned. I don't want it banned. There's an appropriate time and place for lots of different types of assessment, and bans are a simplistic thing. Okay, programmatic assessment is a huge one that I'm a big fan of. Programmatic assessment is this idea that rather than focusing on the level of the individual task, we should zoom out and ask, at the completion of the degree, can students do what we say they can do? And how do we map that? How do we map the development of those capabilities over different unit subjects, over different assessments? And also, how do we assure ourselves that people can do those things? Thinking programmatically is a key sort of thought tool, a key conceptual way of addressing this problem of cheating, because the question stops being, how do I stop people from cheating in the task? And the question becomes, how can I be sure that people who get this degree can do what we say they can do? And things like the VIVAs, the interactive oral assessment that I mentioned before, yeah, it might be impossible to do it in every task, but if you look at the degree and say, where are the points in time where we really, really need to know what people can do, you might deploy interactive oral assessment at those moments. So thinking programmatically rather than at the task level is key here. Okay, honor codes. Very briefly, in the States, they have these things where you sign on and say, I know what cheating is and I won't do it. There's some evidence that they do reduce rates of cheating. It's quite small reduction, but it's reasonable evidence, but it's questionable whether it applies outside of the US. There was a study in the UK that found there was a bit of objection to the kind of moral aspect of it. Stylometry. Stylometry are these things like Turnitin authorship that look at students' writing and how it changes over time and try to see, is this person who wrote this the same person that wrote those? We did a study in our centre that found that our markers were they were significantly better at detecting contract cheating when they used that product. It was an early alpha of it. Content matching. Content matching goes down here on this B. I've written content matching rather than text matching because, you know, text matching tools like Turnitin or whatever else just focus on text, but there are other tools that say focus on computer code, like Moss or JPlug. They focus on computer code and whether people have copy pasted that. A necessary part of the puzzle, a good layer of Swiss cheese, probably responsible for a decline in copy-paste plagiarism since the early 2000s, but certainly tools like Quillbot rewrites text for you, defeat content matching. They just destroy it. So I wouldn't be surprised if content matching actually moves down the list over the coming years because it's just less effective in this current technology environment. And the final and usually most controversial one is authentic assessment. Now, authentic assessment goes all the way down there because in and of itself, authentic assessment does not address the problem of cheating. There's great research by Kath Ellis and colleagues where they looked at a huge set of contract cheating assignments and found, gee, heaps of these are authentic assessments. Students are buying authentic assessment en masse. Making it authentic does not stop contract cheating. Now, if you say, oh, but Phil, students want to do my authentic task, which makes it better, I'd go, yeah, great. But that's not about the authenticity. That's about this task students want to do. And I totally agree with you. We should set tasks students want to do. But the authenticity in and of itself doesn't address cheating. Now, I'm not anti-authentic assessment. I research authentic assessment. I think authentic assessment should be our default. We should have to justify whether our assessment is not authentic. But in and of itself, it does not address cheating. So that's all of the things on the tier list. We've built this over this time. Think about this. The key things I'd love you to take away isn't the placement of every single thing. It's that some things are more effective than others. And especially this idea of Swiss cheese, that we want to layer approaches and we want to layer at the degree level, at the program level. So I'm going to stop sharing and I think we've got time for a chat. Thanks so much.
Bill, thank you. And we do have time for some questions, and there are some questions here. Let me just change our views so that we're not just seeing you and me big for the moment. A couple of questions that have been put into the Q&A. Where would things like recorded presentations sit?
I mean, recorded presentations, I haven't got on there because it's not a hugely prevalent one. Look, I'd need to go away and think about it, but I'd say it's below interactive oral assessment, but it would be above things like reflective practice. There certainly is the potential for people to read a script, and sites will write you the script that you want. You know, a contract cheater will do that for you. But yeah, getting the person more involved, I'd say probably more effective. So that's a great question. Thanks.
Excellent. Another one, if I like open book, if that book has to be subject material specific, that cheating companies might not have access to. Can you comment on that?
So liking open book, if it's going to be specific to the subject matter, well, I guess I'm struggling to think of why someone might bring in something that's not related to the subject. I guess, is that a concern that people might bring in pre-written questions? Because that certainly is a potential. If you have a well-known exam and everyone knows what the exam's going to be, then open book is certainly vulnerable to people bringing in a completely pre-written task. And
probably my comment there would be too, if it's only subject material specific for what has been created in this context, does it reduce the way people can actually find broader information? Like, is it tightening it down too much? Another one, Phil, to what extent might universal design for learning approach help reduce cheating?
So it's a really interesting question. I'll take a little step back from that and talk about validity. So as I said at the start, I care about cheating because I care about validity. I care about us being able to say that our assessments hold up against all sorts of things. Now, exclusion is also a validity threat. So when we set assessment tasks that privilege some students over others, or that some students can't access or participate in fully, that's a validity threat as well. So to me, universal design for learning doesn't directly connect with cheating, but if we go up a level to the concept of validity, universal design for learning is a great ally of validity. And when we think about cheating, we need to think about to what extent might it threaten validity as well. So if we set a task that, you know, there was this stuff about remote proctored exams, not being able to recognize certain faces, or some poor practices around them that were exclusionary, I see that as a validity threat as well. And universal design for learning is a real positive for validity. So sorry to not directly connect them, but if we jump up to validity, it works.
Thank you. How do we address training markers with the skills they need to detect cheating when 90% of the marking is casualised and academic workload always under pressure?
Yeah, it's a great question. So all the studies we've done with markers have been with casual markers from across all of our faculties. And the cheapest intervention is to tell them that this thing exists, to get them to briefly understand what it is. And I'd say particularly that AI stuff, because there's not much awareness in the sector. And they have an innate hunch for like if something weird's going on, and make it really clear to them what the next step is. What do they have to do next? A lot of them will tell you, I don't get paid for this and it's not in my workload, and we need to dispel that myth and we need to find ways to support them. We can do more involved training. The training that we found really increased rates of detection was a 2-hour training workshop. So it's not a huge investment, but at the very least, awareness raising and clear processes.
Thank you. That's a really good direction for us. Another question, interested to hear your thoughts on group work being a problem for student cheating and how to prevent that for students.
Okay, so I think there's a few problems here. One of them is when one student cheats and it kind of really hurts all of them. I think that's a horrible experience. If we jump back up to validity though, because that's our main reason for caring about cheating, I think we have a bigger validity problem with group work, which is we set students a task that we say assesses particular outcomes, and they split it up between them, and they never really do the whole task, but we accredit them for having completed the whole task. And that's a really big problem. If you've done outcome A and your friend's done B and your other friend's done C, and we accredit you for A, B, and C, that's a huge validity problem.
Another person, Sam, has said he offers a cumulative hand-drawn sketchbook exercise which draws on lectures and weekly forum participation. What are your thoughts on this model?
That sounds fascinating. If it involves a sort of work in progress sort of review where there's a conversation as you go, I think that would be really powerful in terms of helping to just have those check-ins. And if it involves some work that's done in a synchronous mode, that'd be even better. You don't have to do all of those things, but those are just ways that it might get more secure.
Fantastic. The use of objective structured clinical exams could be useful as the student needs to perform the skill and simulation. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think OSCEs are, a pretty powerful one. I'd say they're powerful for ways that are kind of similar to the interactive oral assessment. Either they have that kind of interactive component to them. I'd probably bunch them in there with that.
And our last question, does Quillbot result in strange uses of synonyms?
So look, it can. I mean, my favorite ones from this space, and there's a whole genre of humor around this, was someone translating Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and they got chief priest and cupboard. So there can be a real literalness to some of the rephrasing, but I'd say in this space, the paraphrasing is just getting better and better. And if we rely on its lack of sophistication for now, that's not going to last with us for years. It's not a long-term solution.
Phil, thank you so much for such deep content and such an interesting way of presenting it, because you've certainly touched on so many ways that we can actually address the overall problem of cheating. And I find your Swiss cheese approach really key to how we need to think about it. It's not a one size fits all. It's actually all of us looking at the many different ways that we can address it within our own sphere of influence. And that's really important. Thank you for bearing with our initial problems and the fact that we couldn't see you. I'm so glad that we can now. But more so, thank you so much for opening our conference with such an interesting and inspiring keynote. And we look forward to reading some of those things you've suggested, but also following up with discussions that we have across the institution. We can't do claps. I suppose we can do symbolic claps, but I'm sure that everybody has found this a good way to start our day. And we thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a joy to come here. Don't worry about the technical difficulties. It was all good. And if people want to follow up with any of this, I can recommend the book. And also I'll share a PDF with just each one of those things on the diagram. There's a few references in support of it that you can distribute somehow, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. That would be fabulous. And thank you to everyone in our audience as you've joined us this morning. There's a little break now to get up and stretch, because we all know that, it's not very good to be sitting all day. Our next session starts at 11:15, and you'll find the links on the Conference Hub. And I hope that you all have a really good day as we move now into the conference. Thank you, Phil, again, and thank you everybody for being here this morning.